As indicated in class, the dative case usually indicates an indirect object or the object of a dative preposition and also a dative verb. The genitive case, on the other hand, denotes possession. What we'll do next is look at some sentences that come from our book, and I'm going to zero in first on, actually let me change my color to red. I'm going to zero in on this one. Das Volk gibt der Kirche das Geld. And you see the English, the people give the money to the church. The indirect object there is not the last item in the sentence, but rather what's before it. Die Kirche, which would be feminine in the nominative case, but here it functions as an indirect object, and therefore it is switched to der. The definite article becomes der. Again, das Volk gibt der Kirche das Geld. So as readers, you'll be looking for instances of the word der that could indicate the dative case of a feminine noun. What we learned first is that der is usually associated with the nominative case of masculine nouns, so you really do need to look at it in context, and that's what we're here to do. Likewise, der Student, subject of this sentence, verb in second position sagt, der Professorin den Titel. We've got the same thing operating there, right? It would be die Professorin. I don't need to write that out. But the dative case there is used. We'll just look at some other sentences. I hope I can make it. I can actually make this a little bigger. This way. The genitive example that starts this row of sentences is this one. In dem Theaterstück schreibt der Autor über die Meinung des Volkes und die Macht der Kirche. Both instances there are of showing possession. For us. Moving right down the page, we have another one. It would be das Stück in this third sentence. Das Stück means the piece. And this is a theater piece or a play. So in der Professorin fragt, was ist der Titel, nominative, des Stückes, genitive, we note there the possessive. Likewise, the title down here, das Stück heißt Das Leben des Galilei, the life of Galileo, and therefore those examples will hopefully build on what we talked about in class. Does this look familiar from week 1? This is that scene of people taking a break on the grass. Das Gras ist grün, yeah? All right, so we want to enlarge this. The sentence I've written shows which word in the indirect object, which word of the first phrase. I'll read the phrase. Der Mann gibt der Frau ein Kissen. Yes, you know it. It's this one, because that would normally be a feminine noun in the nominative case, but it is der Frau, to the woman. The man gives the woman, or gives to the woman, some direct object here. Am I still using blue? Good. Blue for the ein Kissen, which is, by now you know, a pillow. They're trying not to get dirty. So if you want to know who I'm talking about, it's right here. This man is giving this woman a pillow. Der Mann gibt der Frau ein Kissen und die Frau dankt dem Mann. Danken is a dative verb. So I'm just going to sort of underline that and underline the dative dem Mann. Now it sounds like to thank someone would be a direct object or accusative case, but it isn't, because this specific verb is one of 5 that always take the dative case. Memorize that. Danken, glauben, geben are the most common. Gehören you don't need to know yet, but the first 3 are danken, glauben, gehören. Okay, just for one other scene from here, I'll say something about the woman showing up right here. And I'll say, die Kissen gehören der Frau. And that indicates dative from this verb gehören, so that it explains why we're dealing with this in the dative case. Finally, for a review of the simple past tense of weak or regular verbs, this passage from your textbook is a good one to look at. I'm going to underline a few of these in red, and then for the next mini lecture, I'll have us look at this exact text again. All of these are examples of the simple past of irregular verbs. There's only one in here that I have to underline in a different color as well, font, that is showing up here as a simple past, but it is not regular in its form. Therefore, you need to think again about the verbs as being either regular or irregular in their conjugations. Technically, the verb sein is also an irregular verb, but don't dwell on that part. So when you join me for the second part of this mini lecture, which is lecture 2 for this week, as homework, it's right below this item in Blackboard. You'll see my explanations of this very slide. So moving on, what does this text mean? Von 1580 bis 1584 studierte der junge Galilei in Pisa Medizin. Just the first half of that sentence has lots of pieces and parts to it, right? These dates, I think you heard me say, are pretty self-explanatory from this date to this date. Now we have our verb in second position, studierte, but we need a subject to go along with it. It would very much make sense for that to be der Junge, the young Galileo. So the last two items there are, going to get that going with a bluer color. In Pisa and Medizin. He studied both in Pisa and he studied medicine. So why is it in that particular order? You'll notice that location or place usually comes before a direct object. Also, time comes before place. Don't get tripped up about word order things, because that's a very complicated thing about German, and it is actually something for a much later point in the course. I'll just repeat the first phrase so that we're all squared away. In English, of course. From 1580 to 1584, young Galileo studied medicine in Pisa. Then in German, going on from there, it's aber die Philosophie und Mathematik fand interessanter. Now we're at a point where, remember on Monday where we had in a position that was not at the beginning before the verb? This is another one. Fand, and then these are the direct objects here. These subjects, Philosophie and Mathematik, more interesting. Get this back to a better color. More interesting, obviously you can tell what word that is. It's a comparative form. But he found philosophy and mathematics more interesting. As a lecturer in mathematics at the University of Pisa, Galileo developed a functioning thermometer and examined theories of physics. Okay. All the cognate words I'm not going to underline, but you've seen red underlines for each and every one of the verbs that are showing up here as the simple past. which is the preterite form. Later on, we'll be learning the other past tense, but that's for another day, fortunately. And on Monday, I'll have time to go over a little bit more in terms of actual texts in our live session. But for right now, this is where I'll stop with this text. For those who wish to hang on for the last two sentences, here they go, but you can exit at this time if you're short on time. Starting here with 18 Jahre lang. I'll read it in German and then I'll give the English translation. 18 Jahre lang war dann Professor der Mathematik in Padua, in der liberalen Republik Venedig, und veröffentlichte Werke über das heliozentrische Weltbild. I love these cognates. 18 years long, he was then a professor of mathematics in Padua, in the liberal republic, or I should call this the Free Republic of Venice. And he's published works about the heliocentric concept of the world or view of the world. Das Bild is really picture. Let me underline that compound down. Bild is, das Bild is a picture, and picture of the world or view of the world. So a heliocentric view of the world does make sense in that sense. And finally, im Jahr 1609 beobachtete Galilei den Himmel durch ein Fernrohr und die Entdeckungen des Wissenschaftlers bedeuteten eine Revolution in der Astronomie. That's a nice sentence. In the year 1608, Galileo beobachtete, we saw this, didn't we, on Monday? Observed the heavens, really, the sky. Der Himmel can be either the heavens or the sky. Through, this is preposition durch, through a telescope, and this is the German word, the literal word for telescope. So starting, I'll start at the beginning. In the year 1609, Galileo observed the heavens through a telescope, and the discoveries, that's die Entdeckungen, the discoveries of the scientist, by the scientist, genitive case, but it's really a possessive of the scientist. The discoveries of the scientists, in our verb, meant a revolution in astronomy. Now, meant there, bedeuten literally means to mean something. Was bedeutet das? What does that mean? But in this sentence, bedeuteten means more that they signified. All right, that's all. See you Monday.